So call to order the Rice Creek Watershed District Managers regular meeting. It's October 9th, 2024. It's 9 a.m. We are located in the Shoreview City Hall Council Chambers. Let the record reflect that Manager Wynant is not present, but with prior notice. Otherwise, all managers are present. Chuck Holtman is our attorney today. Others normals are here. Set the agenda. Manager, Administrator.
Yes, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, staff have two changes proposed for the agenda. One is a new item 2 under actions, which will be the utility task vehicle purchase that you discussed at the workshop. And then under the consent agenda, removal of the WACA application 24-040.
So with those changes, I'll move approval of the agenda. Yes.
I did have a change to the agenda. I would like to bring a motion to reconsider the 2025 Stormwater Management Grant Release Program that we looked at the last board meeting. And I believe we're supposed to have a vote before I give any discussion on why or anything.
Well, I'm going to second it so we can have that discussion. Issue is, should we have that discussion about why he wants to amend the agenda? Or what?
You're just adding an item to the agenda.
Yeah.
And so at the time the agenda comes around, we'll have the discussion, but at this time,
Well, the agenda is now.
yeah. He's made that.
He's made
So
a
are you
motion to
seconding are you
I'm
seconding the
motion
agenda?
to Amend the agenda.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I understand now.
All,
That's fine.
all in favor of that, so we can have a discussion?
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
Yeah, so the agenda's set.
The agenda set, and we
Okay.
will add that then as, well, where would you like that to be, Nick?
This is technically other business, but there's not an other business item on the
Yeah.
agenda, but.
Yeah.
technically other
Uh,
business, right?
Informational item,
Yep. So
new,
Reconsideration,
Items
item
for
for action.
Yeah, I
So
think it's an
action.
action item.
okay, let's make it number 1 under action item.
Number
There we
one,
go.
Steve.
for one?
That makes it easy.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. All right. I believe that takes us then to approval of minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it does. I would move that we approve the minutes from the September 25, 2024 regular meeting.
Is there a second? There's any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Brings us to the consent agenda. Patrick?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, staff have 3 applications for your consideration today. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Patrick on the consent agenda, items 24, 062, 064, and 065? Quickly make sure I haven't tabbed something. And I have not. Then in that case, if there's no questions, I'll ask for a motion to accept the recommendations.
Well, I can't find it.
All right, so I will move to conditionally approve pending receipt of changes. The items 24062, 24064, 24065 in accordance with the district engineer's findings and recommendations as contained in engineer's findings and recommendations report October 1, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposed. All right. Takes us then, and since we had a withdrawal.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the water quality grant cost share application. I believe Molly is online if need be.
That's the Jeff Bridge.
That's correct.
All right. Welcome, Molly.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Managers. For your consideration today, we have one application for the Water Quality Grant Program, W24-03, at the Burridge property in Matamidi. This project is looking to complete a pervious paver installation, a couple rain gardens, and upland stabilization through native plantings. This will be a 50% cost share at $7,500. If you have any questions, I invite you to ask them now.
Anyone have any questions, Molly? Any discussion, all about, let's have a motion.
Oh, we have to get very specific, don't we? I move to approve the consent agenda as outlined regarding the grant application W 24-03.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. Moving right along.
Yes, Manager Bradley, next on the agenda is the open mic.
Ah. So we have the open mic, the opportunity for anyone who would like to discuss with us an item not on our agenda. I don't see anyone in the audience that we shouldn't know. And do we have anyone online?
Don't believe so.
Okay, in which case we'll move ahead.
Thank you. Board Manager is next on your agenda after the adjustment to the agenda is to reconsider the 2025 Stormwater Management Grant.
Okay, and I can, I'd like to explain first why I didn't bring it up at the last meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. The first matter would be to make the motion and seek a second. And then when the motion's on the table, Steve, you would discuss. Manager Wagaman, you would discuss why you would like to reconsider
Okay,
that.
I thought we did that.
No, you added it to the agenda. so
I
now you
see,
need to
we
make
got
the
it.
motion.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
I got it. So what would you like me to?
Move to
Like,
reconsider.
like to bring a motion to reconsider the 2025 Stormwater Management Grant Release Program.
And I will second it so that we can have a discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You opposed? Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, at the last meeting, I had missed a couple months before that with Lyme's disease, and I actually thought that it had gone through the board workshop. And when I was uncomfortable when I left, thinking I wasn't really sure I knew enough about it to make my vote. And I was gonna go back and look at the notes that the other managers had, and I couldn't find any, and I realized that we did not bring it to a board workshop. And when we're changing rules and regulations that are gonna stand, I don't think we should abdicate our authority to the CAC committee. I appreciate their input and, look at it closely, but I still think that we should have a bite at the apple. We're the ones in charge, and I think it should go to a board workshop also.
So I think we may.
That's all I'm asking.
I think we may be in a unique situation that we may already have acted on our board's action of last meeting. Nick, can you clarify whether we have or not?
Sure, Board Managers, after the board approved the 2025 grant, they were posted on the website and then emails sent to our partners that the grant period is open and they could engage the district on potential projects.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Certainly.
And maybe this is a question for the attorney, but I believe regardless of notifications being sent out, that under Robert's Rules of Order, a item can be brought back and reviewed if the item is brought back by a member of the prevailing side of the original motion. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Manager Robertson, there are two criteria for the motion to be in order. One is that it have been at the same or the following session of the board, and that's all that is covered here. The second is it's not in order if a third party has relied on the action. In this case, the district itself has taken steps to publicize the new terms and so forth, but it could still be altered because no third party has relied on that yet. The district hasn't made a grant that it would now be withdrawing or something of that nature. So it is in order now.
So we still could look at it.
So, but let me ask some further questions. if
Yeah,
I could.
please.
So we are under a tight timeline. The cities have until end of December, I believe, to make the application. We have it included in our requirements that we published that they sit down with us as a pre-meeting meeting. So unless there is a specific provision in there that you wanted to change now, rather than setting a process for the future.
Well, that's the problem. I don't feel comfortable. I would have liked to heard from the staff, their reasoning behind them before I mean, I don't know that until I hear what
But you-
the CAC committee heard.
I'm
And
just saying that under the circumstances we have.
I
unless
understand what you're saying, but I
unless you
don't, I
have
mean,
this-
I don't have any specific one that,
This time.
there's some that I have some discomfort with, but I don't understand them enough to know that I want to change them or not.
Do we have, I mean, I don't have it with me. Actually, it might be in my
I do
vehicle.
have it.
Last week's. Can I see that for a second?
Yes, you sure may.
I did get a phone call after that meeting, and I think kind of from Steve's position, I may have an error greenlit something that in the aftermath that I'm not entirely comfortable with, and part of that being if you have it, I'll know exactly what it is. Thank you. Sorry, now I have to put glasses on because
I think I
that's
got
where
it
I'm at in
right. Yep,
age now. It was the red line item regarding the application process that included language on non-eligible applicants. It was I believe, was it under regulatory? Was it item 8 that I can't remember the item. It was one of the red line items.
Yeah, I remember.
And
We discussed, I mean.
it was the one that we amended the language on. Chris added some additional language. Is it this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was under item 3, funding availability. And I understand that, there's always complexities as it relates to the relationship between the watershed historically and cities and what have you. I actually am not a fan of the red line language in here because it feels like we are inadvertently targeting like just maybe a couple cities that we aren't super friendly with. This is just how I feel. You don't have to agree, and that's okay. So, I mean, that in the aftermath was this component as it relates to eligibility for funding based on, entities that owe funds to the district will not be considered. Because I think there are, in some cases, as is the case with Circle Pines, somewhat extenuating circumstance and very complex circumstance where they are, in a review process and paying third parties to review in the, after the fact work that the district has done. And I don't want to disqualify someone because I like rules because I like structure, but I don't like rules sometimes because one size fits all doesn't vibe with me. So I do have an issue with this. So I don't know. This was not my motion. It was yours.
Yeah, no, and.
But that would be my only real objection is actually the language that we amended and approved in the red line item on item number 3.
I personally honestly did not have a particular one. The one that I was questioning was, not this one. The one that I was wondering about was the every year reports, and I was wondering kind of what the cities thought of that. And Manager Robertson can maybe say from the city standpoint how they feel about that. I don't know.
My
It's
discussion.
above my pay grade.
Okay.
Little Roach here, Mr. President, yeah. John, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So, Mr. President, I don't have any problem with bringing this back to a workshop. I, as you know from the last meeting, didn't support the language specifically that we were talking about here. That was amended. I objected to the idea that projects proposing the maintenance and repair of existing stormwater infrastructure be ineligible for stormwater management grants. That leaves out the stormwater ponds, which is a kind of a big issue in others. And I also am not a fan of listening to the new section in there about the reporting issue. Where it was explained during the meeting that that could be as many as 10 years, which was doesn't say here in that language, but the inability of the staff to explain what active meant. As though it was active reporting period. So I think that, and second, I think this, finally third, I guess, is that this is something we should talk with the cities with at what our partners meetings.
That's what.
And should have been brought up with them to see what we can do to adjust this system instead of just arbitrarily making these changes. And so that's the way I look. I don't think I think talking to the purpose of the partner meetings is to have communications over the documents like this and how the process works. So that hasn't taken place yet.
So we're always able to add more layers of process. We can't add more layers of process and get these grants out in January. Nick?
Yes, Board of Managers, I'll offer to you, it's good discussion here. These are the program guidelines, so they would, there's quite a few here. And the idea was that we get sufficient information as we engage the engineer and staff, read through these to guide the applicant and for them to be successful. I'll share the district has any number of obligations in maintenance or inspection, maintenance, and reporting on our grant dollars that we receive from other public entities. That's not unusual. How the board wants to structure it is certainly an aspect of that. That obviously ensures the good use of the public's funds and that they weren't one and done, so to speak, that there's ongoing value from those. Again, guidelines, it's the application form. We're not binding an applicant to these things. Ultimately, the board, the CAC would review them, the engineer would review them, they would be scored, the applications brought before the board for consideration, along with the maintenance obligation language.
Mr. President, one final comment here for me. I look at all of this red language that's been added in here throughout the agreement, the application and such as kind of in search of a problem. I don't see what our problem was that we had with the old application that much. And it seems to me that this is, just a solution that's in search of a problem. So, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I would just like to make a general comment. If time is of the essence on some of these, then I would have recommended, as much as I like to see the advisory committee's views on it as another source of information, I would say if time is of the essence, then it should have went to our workshop then instead of the advisory committee.
Well, we're in a problem here, guys. You've got each issued one area of concern. The issue of the reports was clearly stated by Will Roach to be during the period that the grant was active, and it says active, which can be at most 3 years, more likely less than that. So it's just on us, where are you in the grant process? That's can't be a basis for having a real objection. If we were to have someone actually denied, they would be able to bring to us the fact that they were denied and ask us to consider that. So I think there's an avenue to address that issue. And I would be happy to support a motion or whatever that says next year, bring it to us at a workshop before you bring it to us at a board meeting, which means you back everything up a month. But to stop our ability to issue $300,000 of grants because of a procedural issue doesn't work for me.
Mr. President, are you saying bring this particular language back next year?
Oh, he's saying-
Whatever yeah, that would be in there. They bring the whole.
Bring the whole thing
bring
back
the whole thing
to,
back next year.
No, what he's
Yes.
saying is the language stays where it stays right now.
Yeah.
And then next year, we can reconsider this thing next year.
Right.
And he's saying, you have to do that because we've already issued this and we're up against the deadline.
Because we
And I'm-
can't issue a new one.
Yeah, I'm saying,
You're
we,
done in time.
I'm saying, I respectfully disagree with him that we can just remove all of this language and issue the current that we've had for years and be within the deadline.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a clarifying question? Maybe the attorney, what's the current motion on the table? Was it just to bring this item back and identify it? There wasn't a motion made to amend anything specific, correct?
No.
Because I want to make sure I know what we're talking about before I say something else.
The, Mr. Chair, Manager Robertson, the motion on the floor is the motion that the board previously voted on last meeting. It's
Okay.
now back on the floor as though you had not yet voted on it.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. If you're looking for direction, and I don't disagree with you that this does, I'm hearing all the comments and I don't, all the things that are being said have validity to them. I do think in a lot of cases, we are solving problems that maybe don't exist, at least that this board hasn't been shared with, that there are issues that we need to identify through modifying the language in this document. I understand what you're saying in that, this probably should have come to a full workshop, certainly. If you're looking to amend anything, I think in the aftermath, what I have the issue is removing the red line item in item number 3. That's me. That has nothing to do with what's gone out. It's really only addressing who is eligible for the application. So that would be my only ask in reviewing these. And then in addition to that, yes, in 2025, let's page by page break this down. Let's get, the feedback from the cities on what makes the application difficult or not difficult. You take the feedback from the CAC and do all the things because again, everyone is saying things that are valid and true. If there was anything that I would ask would be to remove the red line item in item 3.
So,
I would have no problem with that at all.
so if
but-
we can identify specific items and as a board vote on that specific item, I would think we'd be able to accomplish that
Sure.
and still get this done. And so we give $300,000 out in
Yep.
January.
I am in no way, shape or form attempting to impede the process. I understand
Appreciate that.
documents were
Okay.
sent out. I also think that the documentation that was sent out would still be 99.9% valid if we were to remove the red line language in item number 3, identifying who is available to apply for these funds. And I guess, well, that's probably, I see your hand going up out of the corner of my eye. That I suppose is not entirely true because there is reference to the projects eligible for those funds, but that would be my suggestion is that we remove the red line item on item 3 on the packet that was presented last week.
And I would have no problem
Can
with
you
that,
read the-
except I
can you
do have
read
one
into
other
the
one. to
record
discuss.
language you want removed.
I certainly can. The only difference is I think we also added additional language from Chris when we did read this into the record. So I would propose that we remove the language from the Watershed District Stormwater Management Grant Program Guidelines regarding item number 3, funding availability, local match and eligible costs. And the red line item to be removed, projects proposing the maintenance of repair or existing stormwater management infrastructure are eligible for stormwater management grant funding. Additionally, projects that are proposed by entities that owe funds to the district will not be considered.
Second,
Where are we, Chuck? Can we do this?
So, Mr. Chair, so this would be a motion to amend the motion that is presently on the table.
Correct. Correct. Yes. Okay. Correct.
And then you would, if that passes, then you'll have a vote on
Vote
the
on the
amended
entire-
motion.
Yes.
So it's understanding the result of approving this is that it would change Steve's request that we stop the whole thing this year to just make that one amendment at this time. And then we would go
Yeah, I
forward
understand.
to change our process for next year.
Yes, a
I have
hybrid
one-
request of all the things that were identified here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there is one though that I would just, I'm not saying I'm against it. I just would like to hear more about it from the other members. Can
So,
that be
Sure,
discussed
well,
before we vote?
It's probably a-
well, we have
We have
to,
a
is a
motion on
motion
the
on the
table.
table.
That's what I was
We have
gonna
a
ask.
second.
So-
All right,
but-
let's have that motion
that
on this,
stop?
this vote on this motion, and then we'll proceed with the discussion of the entire document, and that's a time would be appropriate to bring up your next question.
Yeah, okay.
If there, is there further discussion on the motion that is before us made by Manager Robertson? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, not hearing any, we'll pass that.
Thank you.
All right, what's your,
I just had a question. I can't remember where it's at in here. It was the one that had to do with the how they had to report. And I don't know, that may be perfectly, here it is, I think. For inspections and, no, that's not the one. Where the hell is it?
Item number 10
Pardon? Item 10?
is reporting.
It's on page 40 of the previous packet.
Okay, here we go. All right, that's the one. Here's the one. Yeah, annual written progress reports are due on December 31st each year. The grant is active, including any extensions. The first report due December 31st. Reports must include at a minimum summary, activities completed current year, and an updated timeline for completion. I get all that. But that's not it. There was one that said that they had to do it every 10 years, that they
No.
had to give reports every year, I thought.
In-
And I was just questioning whether everybody thought that was,
you don't require that.
am I dreaming?
No,
I don't know
you're
that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? On that item 10, because I noticed that's also all a red line item. My assumption, and I think it's been alluded to, is that with a grant being approved regardless, there is a reporting component to the grant itself, correct?
Right.
So what's being identified in here is above and beyond the requirement that already exists?
Is Will
Here
here?
it is.
Page 43.
Yep, 45.
Well, you're on 45. I was on 43.
so
There's a
confused.
10-year.
There's so many things being
10-year
said.
thing on 43 too.
I didn't hear what y'all said, so I'm
Manager
sorry.
Bradley,
Yes.
if I could, Will is online. He has his hand raised.
Good.
for-
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
So let's call in.
we're working on the technology.
Good morning, Board of Managers. Yeah, so there's a lot to discuss here, so just kind of circle back on a couple of things here if I can. Regarding the red line language that Manager Waller and Manager Robertson flagged about eligibility, I will note one key thing to consider for that is that the language referring to projects that are proposing maintenance of existing systems, that is language that has been included in the program guidelines. It's included last year and in 2022. I believe it was in 2021 as well. So I mean, if it's still the board's prerogative to have that language removed, I can certainly do that. I just wanted to flag that for group reference. Regarding the reporting requirements, again, and I believe this was already brought up in the meeting, in the discussion as well. Yes, the reporting is essentially an annual progress report during the 3 years that their grant is active of just what work has been done, what still needs to be done, and then kind of what their updated timeline for project completion looks like. As Manager Bradley noted, depending on the nature of a project, it might be completed well before that 3 year of the grant deadline. So it might be something where they only have to submit one report, maybe 2 reports. And then regarding the information Manager Wagman's referring to now, which notes the 10-year. So it's not 10 years of reporting. This is some language the CAC requested where they basically just provide like a maintenance plan of that 10 years. So we wouldn't be requiring reporting for 10 years, just effectively asking applicants to outline what does long-term maintenance look like for this project? How frequently will it be inspected, and what activities may go during that time?
I don't know. If that's I'm not saying that's unreasonable. I'm not sure if it is. I found it when I was, go ahead, John. Or-
So I'm reading the language here in 43 and I respectfully disagree with you a little bit here, Will. It does say that there's a 10-year reporting period, and you're correct. It's outlining the maintenance and such and what the process would be for the next 10 years. But the next sentence says that after you receive the funding for this and you've got this report, there'll be a annual written report that summarizes the maintenance and monitoring.
Right.
So that's 10 years of reporting. And that's the issue that. I think
That was
we're
my
talking-
question,
we're
and
talking
we
about.
did find it. And that's what I was.
This is 10 years
questioning.
of reporting. And, that's, I don't know, that's not the 3 years of the activeness. You're talking about the active part of the grant, the development of it and how it's going and the implementation. Okay, I can see that on the 3 years, but this is 10 years subsequent to that. So to me, and that's all new language. So, and in the language that we've already decided to remove, that was also new language. It wasn't there. It may have been in other parts of the agreement finally or understood, but it wasn't, it's new language. So that's finished and we'll move on.
Yeah. Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, specific to that point about that. Again, we're looking at the application guidelines and the dialogue that staff will have with the applicant about how this project, whatever it is, which is currently unknown to us, will look in the future as they move through it. In the actual grant agreement, it talks about construction and maintenance and access in those obligations. There is no change specific to that in the agreement document. So we want to be sure that what an applicant proposes, they know that the district generally wants to protect the public funds and ensure that they're serving the intended purpose into the future.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because I do think there is conflicting language in here, and I hear what you're saying. Absolutely, the applicant should be made aware of what, responsibilities come with the grant. But I do think, again, that there is conflicting language, because the second that reporting item got added in here on page 40, number 10, and we're saying already, Will, I believe, if I'm understanding you correctly, that there is already a due diligence process required with the grant application per grant, and I understand that as well. There is reference to a 10-year timeline in this document as well. And then when you look at page 45, then it's like on top of the expectation of maintenance and reporting with the grant, there's an annual report to be written each year of the active grant. But then again, you go back in the document and it references a 10-year period. So I do think that there is confusion. And quite frankly, I think the confusion could probably, it sounds like the application process and the maintenance process following receiving the grant, is pretty stringent. It has a reporting requirement already. So, I don't know, maybe you just take out the language in number 10, and I think it is confusing. So I get what you're saying, because there are multiple references to reporting throughout different pieces of this document, including the new reporting section itself, that kind of contradict each other.
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, just a point of clarification. On page 40 of the previous packet, item 10 on reporting is that nuance that Manager Bradley pointed out. Grant is active. So right now the district, going into 2025, we have nearly $800,000 that is pending release, because we have granted it out under this program and we get no response. Are you still doing the project? Is the project off? You're having trouble obtaining state approvals, what have you? We need to be informed of that. That informs your budget, so we know what the line item to be. You're carrying that $800,000 of fund balance out there in kind of a limbo. And so 10 is about reporting to the district instead of each year as it comes to crunch time. It's like, I'm asking Will, where are these at? Do they still want the money? Did the project fall through? That type of thing.
Mr. President. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm disadvantaged by not having a packet because this is not on our agenda.
Here, if you want to.
Do you want?
Well, I'd like to know, so as I understand it, from what I'm hearing, there's two provisions. One provision is the active part, and I don't know that anyone's challenging the active report to us during that 3-year
Right.
period. I don't think
Should-
anyone's challenging that.
For clarity, yeah, that would be previous packet, page 40, item 10.
Okay, so I don't hear anyone challenging that. Apparently there is a later provision. On what page?
On page, I think it's on, well, actually on 40, isn't it?
The one mentioned.
It's in what section is
is
it?
There.
Here, I'll put
Nu-
little arrows
Number
on it.
10,
Number 10, and then page
Number-
43,
yes.
and then the page that you identified as well under, I don't know.
So-
Anyways, yes, there you go.
So on
Yeah.
page, apparently on page 40 is the one apparently no one is objecting to. 43 is I'm a regular written instruction with me, 10 years. Receive. It is the last sentence on page 3 of 4. Section Roman numeral 10. Applicants who receive grant funding will also be required to submit an annual written report that summarizes the maintenance and monitoring work undertaken to maintain functionality. And there's another one on page,
There's reference, and then it's on another part of the packet as well.
yeah, the 43, I have it, that one. Any rate, that, and you think, is there any other place where you found that language?
I don't think
There
I
was the 10
So the
Right, the
objection
10
is apparently
Right.
to requiring 10 annual written reports on the summarizing maintenance and monitoring. And, you know, I would ask the objectors whether or not they would accept every 3-year report.
that would certainly make better sense.
I mean,
think.
certainly we require our own staff to report to us and
Right,
on what they're doing on our facilities, and we require every facility be inspected at least every 5 years.
well, and I'm not even saying maybe that the yearly reports aren't valid. I wanted to hear I would like to hear what the cities had to say about it.
I
And
understand that. We're in a
Ma'am.
position now where we need to move forward.
I get that. So I'd probably take it out until we,
How about modifying it go ahead.
Ooh, I'm itching. Manager Bradley, to the point I'm hearing Manager Wagaman make, as well as others, the portion that you're referring to is in the application form. And so I would think, the district would want to ensure the public's funds for a period of at least 10 years, just meaning what is put on the landscape remains viable.
No one's
And-
challenging that sentence.
Okay, and that's customary. We see it quite a bit and
Yeah.
are subject to it. This should include, and I'm reading the language on page 43, under Roman numeral 10, the added language. This should include a timeline of when regular inspections will be made. At this point in time, none of us know what that project is, what the maintenance may look like. Is it quarterly? Only in the spring? Every other year? I think, to me, I would read the language broader to allow
that's
for,
not what that says.
So we can work with you.
Yeah,
if I could.
okay,
Applicants who receive grant funding will also submit a written report, strike out the word annual, that summarizes maintenance and monitoring work undertaken consistent with the timeline submitted in its application. Okay, or in the alternative, at least every 3 years. What works best for you, Nick?
I, 'cause
I believe what you said sounds fine. I
Okay.
mean, we strike annual and we drive back to the timeline because then we know what the BMP is, what
Right.
this thing is on the landscape.
Right.
We're looking to engage them under their, again, we're in the application form to have discussion about what they intend to build, how it will be maintained, et cetera, and define that maintenance and regular inspection. What's reasonable given the facility?
Right.
More often than not, what you see is greater frequency of inspection early on. How is this thing performing? Is it working? Is it broken? It always fills up with trash or there's some issue to be addressed. Then it is usually spaced out based on adaptive management of what you learn as the system functions. Again, this is the application form, the details of what their maintenance, their response to this looks like would be potentially an attachment to the board's approval of it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just a clarifying question?
Certainly.
And maybe this is a question for you, Will. Will, does each grant application, is it unique in what its reporting timelines may or may not be, or its reporting requirements maybe, or is it all the same? You know what I mean? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Did you get the question, Will? Question
No.
is,
Oh, go ahead.
do applicants currently, because this is new language, they don't currently have a timeline for their maintenance. What do they currently tell us about their maintenance plans?
Yeah, generally correct, there is no current reporting requirement. What we've seen in, recent submittals for maintenance plans have been, and, to Manager Robertson's point, it's something that has varied depending on project type. It could be, if a project is just adding a SAFL baffle to a catch basin, it could be a paragraph 2 of just stating we're going to be doing annual, like an inspection every few months, cleaning out with a vac truck. For larger projects, for example, for something like with the pond for White Bear Lake township that got approved this last program year, they haven't submitted a formal plan yet, but I expect, be something that's a little bit more in depth of, monitoring for sediment buildup, how annual those cleanout inspections are going to be, and kind of what that monitoring process would look like for that.
Can I ask just a clarifying question? Because I feel like you're trying to answer my question, but I'm not like clearly hearing your answer. So each project is unique, yes or no, when the grant is applied as far as what its reporting or maintenance requirements may or not be. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So-
Thank you for clarifying that, because I think that's where I'm getting confused.
I'm
Because
going to try to address your concern.
I like it. Thank you, former attorney
Okay.
Nick Bradley.
So applicants who I will move to amend the last sentence in section 10, 3 or 4 of the application, page 43 of the prior packet. Applicants who receive grant funding will also be required to submit, change "and" to "a," strike "annual" written report based on the inspection timeline contained in its application that summarizes the maintenance and monitoring work undertaken to maintain functionality.
Well, I guess I'll second that just for the discussion, but I'm going to tell you that all you did was extend the timeline from 10 years to who knows when. Because if
No.
the annual if the
Inspections
maintenance
will be at
program
least 10
says we're
years.
going to annually do this for the year, it's just going to keep, it could be 10 years annually, 25 years annually. The
This
whole
should
purpose
include a
is-
timeline of when regular inspections will be
What-
made for at least.
What's
10
the
years.
necessity of this language, period?
What's the necessity of us having a requirement that our staff provide us reports annually on their inspections of our facilities? It's the same function.
Mr. Chair, there's a grant requirement to do the reporting written into the grant already, correct?
No.
So, well, that's what Will said. There's a reporting requirement with a grant being
Yeah.
given, correct? Just
To-
by
so
the
to cl-
nature of the grant itself, not above and beyond what we're talking about now. The nature of the application itself, if a grant is given, is there a reporting requirement within that process when that grant is given?
At this time, prior to the section 10 reporting that was added to the program guidelines, there was not a reporting process. They're required to give us a maintenance plan that outlines like this is what we're going to be doing for long-term maintenance of this project. But there was no requirement to provide us like progress updates or let us know when that maintenance had been done.
So the answer is no, there was not a reporting requirement currently within the grant process. I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because I feel like I'm answering or asking questions, but I'm getting answers to things like that I'm not asking. So there is no requirement currently outside of the adopted red language within the amended stormwater application rules. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
They do have, don't they have during the 3 years though,
That's before the grant's actually active.
That, the 3 years is
that's
just,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
So
the 3 year, the
that's-
active,
There's no maintenance during that 3 years.
Right.
the active program is, are you going to use this money? That's what
Exactly.
that's what the issue is there. This is after you put the grant money together, they put their money into it. Our grant money might be a small 25% of the total project or whatever it is. We're not going to have unlimited reporting forever, because if it's an annual maintenance and the program lasts 30 years, every year you'll have an annual, because that's in their maintenance outline. It says we're going to annually do this, we're going to annually clean this out, or we're going to, then you have to have an annual report. And like I said, it's a language, it's in search of a, it's a solution, it's in search of a problem. And there's no problem here with this. This is not usual thing that you do, that you have, where we gave you some grant money, and so now you have to produce a report for until whenever. Yeah, if it's annual. So I'd
There's-
call a question on the amendment, Mr. President.
And I appreciate that. Can you just repeat, I guess, what is before us currently? Because we've amended and motioned so many things. I just want to make sure that I'm.
Only thing I propose to amend
Mhm.
is the last sentence of section 10, so that it would read, applicants who receive grant funding will also be required to submit a written report based on the inspection timeline contained in its application that summarizes the maintenance and monitoring work undertaken to maintain functionality.
That's pretty wide open, Mr. President.
Okay, well, the question's been
that's-
called, so you have to take a vote on it. So if you don't
Correct.
like it, vote no. If you
It's
like
not
it,
wide open.
vote yes. I mean, that's just kind of, the question's been
Yeah.
called, so you have to vote on it now.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Hey.
You got nothing.
Okay,
I
It stays the way it
don't,
is.
what I don't
It
understand,
stays the way it is. I just fixed your
I-
problem and now you put it. right
So-
back.
first of all,
Mr. President, I move that the language on item number 10, measurable outcomes, 20 points here, whatever it is, that under this strategy here, page 43 of the old packet, this whole entire red language be struck, period. Removed.
Is there a second?
Manager Bradley,
No.
the attorney would like to offer some guidance. I believe.
Well, thank you.
thank
If you
you
just-
very much.
Give us a minute here. We're
do we have to
working a document. together.
respond
should-
to Manager Waller's motion? I mean, I'll second it so we can dialogue it.
Yeah.
So I mean, so now there is a motion on the floor.
So what is wrong with having them provide a timeline for when regular inspections will be made for at least the next 10 years?
That's,
Following
Mr.
completion.
President, that seems open-ended to me where,
Why?
well, you're saying the timeline, you're not given any end period on that
Up to
timeline.
10 they provide the end period. Up to 10 years when the project is done.
No, it says
Inspected.
at least 10 years. That's what it says, at a minimum 10 years.
Yeah.
And it could be much, much more.
They
And
determine.
that's why I say, you know, I don't think when we get grant money, to do the lakes,
Sand filters are 25
what,
years.
whatever, that's 25 years on the sand filter. It's 25 years to guarantee, we have to guarantee the function of it for 25 years. But we don't guarantee 25 years on the function for the lakes when we put the
No, we
algae
asked-
treatment in it.
Alright.
No,
Chuck, you got a
So-
solution for us?
Mr. Chair, managers trying to keep all the pieces straight here. First of all, my understanding based on the vote you took last meeting is there is an obligation to maintain the project for 10 years. That's standard. That's separate from reporting. It's simply an obligation for the homeowner to maintain the project. And my understanding is we're not debating, you're not debating that. It's purely the question of what is the reporting obligation. And your vote last time was there's an obligation to report during the period of the grant and nothing beyond that. And the question that you're discussing now is, should there be also an obligation to report after the grant has ended on your actual on your inspection? And the motion that Manager Bradley offered and that was voted down would have provided for that inspection, that reporting to occur on a frequency and for a duration determined with staff on a case-by-case basis. That motion was voted down. Presently, there still is no obligation for the homeowner, for the grantee to report on that during that maintenance period. If Manager Waller's motion passes, I think that would be consistent with where you stand now. There would still be the 10-year maintenance. There just wouldn't be a reporting obligation. And so if that vote passes, I think you've resolved it, but in that way. But if you want an affirmative reporting to occur, then you would need some further action.
My, Mr. President, I mean, I think that we should do that. And then I think we've clearly figured out here that it should have went to a workshop just by the discussion we've had.
No one's debating that.
No, I know. I mean, I'm saying for the future.
so Mr.
And on this, I think his makes sense. And then we have time over the next year to discuss it with the cities at city county partner meetings, do whatever, come up with whatever.
I'm going to call the question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
All in favor, say aye.
On what?
Remove this.
Move all the red
this
line.
language on 43, the two red lines that stay. This should include
I
a
see that
timeline
again?
for regular inspection to be made at least 10 years following completion to applicants who receive the grant funding were required to submit an annual written report that summarizes the maintenance and monitoring and undertaken to maintain functionality. The motion is to remove that language. I vote in favor of it.
It was seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Passes.
Can I make a suggestion when we do review this? There is like a weighted scoring scale, and I think a lot of this dialogue that we're having could probably not have to happen at all or a little less tense. If maybe we included a maintenance section in the scoring when we're scoring the applications of these grants. So just something for discussion when we do bring it back in 2025 to dialogue it.
Very good. So, Mr. President, it's time for us to make the motion to bring this back next year. And
Do we have to do that? I mean,
I don't think so.
I think
Oh,
the Board of Managers has the authority to ask for anything
I
to be
think we
put on
kinda
a
know what's
workshop
gonna
without a
happen.
motion.
well, we have a motion on the table, on the floor
So
right
that's
now.
something we usually don't do as a board motion, but rather as a suggestion. to
Yeah,
the
I
administrator.
understand. Okay, I accept that. But
change our process next year to add an extra month in the process so that they can bring the recommendation
I-
to CSC or 2 weeks or
I
whatever.
thought that was part of the reconsideration motion, my error.
Okay. So what's next?
There's a motion on the table yet.
Check.
Mr. Chair. I could be wrong, but I believe where we are is the motion from last meeting has been amended
Mhm.
by Manager Robertson's motion.
Yeah.
And now you
Amended
would vote on the amended
Yeah.
motion.
The totality of the
Uh,
amendments,
There's two amendments to it.
right? But the totality of the amendments
Well,
would be your
Rob-
next vote.
We dropped the one sentence.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry,
And the
and
second amendment I
Manager
made.
Waller's motion as well
Right.
has
Was
amended
Everyone
that motion.
understand where we are?
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right, so the motion is Manager Robertson's with my amendment to that one section, whatever page that was, and the second one, Waller Amendment, section 10. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, none. Next on the agenda, please.
we're gonna have to add a team bonding event onto our agenda.
Well, it would really help if people had, when we had this before us,
It's all right. It's done. I would,
Because I thought that you guys had brought it to a
move
workshop
on.
while I was gone, or I would have said something at the last meeting.
hope it's in the rear view.
so there we go.
Manager Bradley,
Yep.
next item on the agenda is action item 2, Valdez Land Care and Snow Removal Partial Payment request number 1. Tom is going to address that item.
Thank you, Nick. And Mr. President and Board of Managers, for your consideration is the first pay request from Valdez Lawn Care for the RCD 4 repair project. The contractors completed the majority of the work. It's substantially complete, including the tree removal and disturbed areas have been seeded. They're asking for a partial payment of $88,667.06, which is about 82% of the total of the bill.
Mr. President, I would move to approve Valdez Lawn Care and Snow Removal LLC. Partial pay request number 1 is submitted and certified by the district engineer and direct staff to issue a payment in the amount of $88,667.06.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none.
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, next on the agenda is the item you added, the utility task vehicle purchase. Tom will also address that. It is not within your packet. You did discuss it at the workshop and a handout was given to you this morning.
Thank you, Nick. Board of Managers, Mr. President, as Nick noted, that we handed out basically the memo from the workshop packet. You discussed this at the workshop. We're looking for board action to approve the purchase and to delegate the authority to the administrator to sign a purchase agreement. And just for the add to the record, based on comments from council, that we did consider the requirements under the municipal contracting law. We looked at the state cooperative purchasing venture, but decided that a local purchase was more advantageous to the district, being that the contract for the state contract is, or the dealer for the state contract is in Fergus Falls, and that the local dealership has the equipment in stock and the service is more readily available for us. We did reach out to a second vendor for a quotation, but did not respond to us, so.
Board of Managers, as Tom noted, the handout that you received has a proposed motion at the bottom.
Okay, so we inadvertently have got two two items in front of us right now because I thought we were starting out with the ponds. Now we've segued to the,
We moved this one ahead.
Yeah.
all right, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President, I'll move to authorize the purchase of a new UTV for an amount not to exceed 30,000 and further authorize the district administrator to sign a purchase agreement for the purchase.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Thank you. Matt, welcome.
President Bradley, members of the board, thanks for having me here today. We are looking at an item on page 172 of your packet. You also have a nearly identical handout that you were given this morning. The only difference with the handout is that it fills in a couple of blanks at the end of the memo. So that's where I would direct you for the motion at the end of this item is the handout you received this morning. So this is continuing a discussion that we had at the recent board workshop. I'll quickly run through a couple of these items just for the record here at the board meeting. What we are doing here today is we are seeking a board motion to select a project engineer for the Highway 61 Ponds project. So these Highway 61 ponds, they are a district facility. They are located near the end of, make sure I get this right, Ramsey, Washington Judicial Ditch 1 in White Bear Township. These ponds are just upstream of White Bear Lake. Ponds were constructed by the district in 2003. The purpose of the ponds is to provide water quality benefit for Bald Eagle Lake. So to capture phosphorus before it makes its way into Bald Eagle Lake, also to enhance some wetland functions in the area. Maintenance has not been done on these ponds since they were constructed in about 2003. So it's been about 20 years. That is about the typical lifespan of some of these ponds. So recently the district received watershed-based implementation funding grant from Bowser. The purpose of these funds or the purpose of the project is a feasibility study. So as we're looking at doing inspection and maintenance and possible retrofit of these ponds, the grant dollars received by Bowser are to look at ways to possibly enhance these ponds to function better than they have in the past, particularly to capture dissolved phosphorus. So recent monitoring data from the Rice Creek Watershed District, we have a monitoring station just downstream of these ponds. Those monitoring data suggest that dissolved phosphorus is going up. So the ponds there's more dissolved phosphorus coming out of the ponds. Again, the purpose then of the project is to find ways to try and address that. Is there a way that we can retrofit these ponds? So that is why we have the Bowser grant. That's why the feasibility study is going forward. The Bowser grant is for $40,000. Additionally, the district has up to $20,000 to contribute on top of that. So there would be a total budget of $60,000. So the district used the request for proposals process to identify a project engineer here. The board's outside services policy identifies circumstances where you might consider hiring an outside engineer. Some of those reasons include utilizing specialized expertise and spurring creativity. That very much fits with the theme here. We're looking for some specialized expertise in dealing with dissolved phosphorus and some creative solutions, perhaps using new research coming out of the University of Minnesota. So the request for proposal was sent out to 8 engineering firms. The district received 6 proposals back. The board discussed this at the most recent board workshop. Staff suggested that there were 2 firms that had really good proposals. Kind of offered up that option then to the board to select one of those. The board's consensus following the board workshop on Monday was to select Barr Engineering Company for this project. There is a proposed motion it's not at the bottom of page 173. Again, it's on the handout that you received. That's where we filled in those blanks with Barr Engineering Company and the numbers. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. President, I'll move that authorize the Rice Creek Watershed District Administrator on the advice of council to enter into a professional services agreement for the Highway 61 Ponds project with Barr Engineering for the amount of $53,330. The administrator is hereby authorized to execute the contract amendments that increase the contract by an amount no more than 5%. Of course, you could decrease it by 5% too.
So I'll second that. Any discussion? Any questions of Matt? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Thank you.
Manager Bradley, the next item on the agenda for consideration is the boundary change petition submittal. And as you can see, Catherine's here to lead you through that.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, President Bradley, Board of Managers. Good morning. The district has undertaken a multi-phase investigation and revision of its jurisdictional boundary. Staff and HEI, in collaboration with the district's neighboring entities, are ready to undertake the next step in this process, which is submitting the boundary change petition to the Board of Water and Soil Resources. In September of 2020, the RCWD Board authorized initiation of the technical process of confirming the hydrologic watershed boundary and the associated political boundary between Rice Creek Watershed District and Capital Region Watershed District, Mississippi WMO, Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, Vadnais Lake Area WMO in Ramsey and Hennepin counties, and that also includes a small intermediary portion of Anoka County. In February of 2023, the Rice Creek Board reviewed the proposed legal boundary. And since then, several changes have been made to the proposed legal boundary to accommodate requests from affected cities and watersheds. So this area is generally the southwest portion of the district that we're referring to. A petition has been drafted for updating the watershed boundary in Ramsey, Hennepin, and the small intermediary portion of Anoka counties. Written statements of concurrence have been obtained from each affected city and watershed management organization. To initiate the process of formally updating the boundary, the petition needs to be submitted to the Board of Water and Soil Resources. And attached for the board's review and consideration is resolution number 2024-07, and that's on page 175 of the, 176 of the packet, I think. Double check that.
That's correct.
Yep, 176. And that directs the submittal of the petition to the Board of Water and Soil Resources for a change in the common boundary between the RCWD and Capital Region Watershed District, Mississippi WMO, Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, and Vadnais Lake Area WMO. This recommended legal boundary revision is associated with ongoing efforts to maintain an accurate watershed boundary based on the best available updated information. And a petition has been drafted to meet all the requirements of Minnesota statutes, chapter 103B 215. And the staff recommends that the petition be submitted to Bowser. And there's a proposed motion on page 175 of your packet for your consideration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Catherine?
Mr. President, I'll move resolution 2024-7, Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers resolution requesting a change of boundary with Capital Region's Watershed District, the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, and the Vadnais Lake Area Water Management Organization. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Managers of the Rice Creek Watershed District directs its staff to submit a petition to the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources pursuant to Minnesota Statute 103B.215 to amend the district's legal boundaries.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, thank you, Catherine. It's nice to see you this morning. And it's good to see we're getting this towards the end, hopefully. It's been a long process for a lot of years. And strangely enough, the old mayor in Hugo that requested this to begin increased his taxes by going to the other district. And he did. And even though we gave that to him as a reason, maybe to think this over, he was vehement. He wanted to change. So
You got it.
So this is the last of, I think, 3 major segments. This one started 2020. Do you have an idea when the first one started?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
my earliest recollection is 2014.
Yeah, but it's been about like a
Yep.
decade.
I would say that's pretty
So-
close.
Long
Thank
process.
goodness, because this is obviously a tremendous amount of work, and thank you for that.
Thank
So,
you, President Bradley, and thanks again to Houston Engineering for all their great work on this project too.
yeah. So we have a roll call. Bradley says yes. Waller,
Yes.
Wagman,
Yeah.
Weiner, is
Did
it
you get a
opposite?
second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Or you second.
I
Steve-
second
Steve
it.
seconded. Robertson?
Yes.
Thank you again, Catherine.
Thank you.
Yahoo.
Board Manager, next item is your check register.
Okay, Manager Wynett is not present. In her absence, I will move approval of the check register of $217,974.39.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, none. District engineer updates and timeline? Chris, got anything you want to tell us?
Mr. President, Board Managers, I don't have anything specific, but certainly can address any questions you might have.
Any questions of Chris? Thank you. So are we to
Administrator
updates?
updates.
Go ahead.
Yeah, board managers, just a note here, based on our workshop discussion. I'd ask that you please retain your packets for the non-public solicitation of professional services. Based on the discussion at the workshop and not all the managers being available, we'll move that to the October 23rd meeting. For any discussion you'd like to have and guidance to staff and entering into those.
So we only,
developing the
yeah,
contracts.
at the workshop, we only had three of us, so we felt it appropriate to have all five of us if possible. So that packets expressly indicated who had bid for the various jobs. While the three of us had viewpoints on it, we decided more important to hear everybody's viewpoint. So keep that packet, so we don't have to reprint that much materials.
Yeah.
And that will be on the agenda for our next meeting.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
That's it. Nothing new since the workshop.
Workshop.
Nothing new since.
Nothing new since the workshop.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you. Manager updates.
Manager updates, Mr. Waller.
There was no Washington County Consortium meeting this month, and I see that we're going to have the mod update later in this month, in person. I think that's what it said in my written deal.
Yes, that's right. We do have a meeting coming up,
At Capital Regions,
Capital-
yes, in a couple weeks or so.
physically present there. Steve, any updates?
I have nothing.
Mr. Robertson.
Nothing like super pressing. I did attend the CAC meeting and thank you to Steve because I was running a couple minutes late because I was double booked. And so when I showed up, he was quite surprised. He's like, "You made it, hooray." And honestly, the grant application that was in the packet earlier approved by the Board of Managers was a majority of the items that we discussed, in addition to a presentation from Molly on green roofing. So just following up to that I did attend. Thank you again to Manager Bradley for swapping dates with me. I appreciate it.
Okay, I guess it brings to me, there is a Minnesota Watershed Districts Committee on Bylaws and Rules of Process or whatever. That's coming up next Monday, and I will be participating in it as the appointed person for that. Other than that, I have, and of course, there's the Bald Eagle celebration of the delisting of Bald Eagle Lake next Thursday at 7 o'clock at it's called I think it's the Boatworks Meeting Room right across the street, if you will, from VFW. There's free public parking in the major apartment complex that's just before it and behind it. It's a one-way street, so you turn in there before you get to Aqua Restaurant. So good place to park. Then you come out the exit and you're right there at where the meeting is. So
Mr. President, it's also the shopping center parking lot is a short walk. In
All-
case there's
all that-
overflow.
all of that
necessary.
works well.
But yes, the people know that it's down
Yeah.
by the VFW and not out by
Not out by
Goose
West.
Lake someplace.
Not over by Goose Lake, exactly. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.